Good morning. Today we'll be talking about elder abuse. The World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is coming up on June 15, and it's an important subject we actually haven't addressed before. Thank you, Dr. Ajala and Mr. Ajomale, for coming on the program. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure being here.
Dr. Ajala,
It's a pleasure
start
to
off
be
with
here.
you. Thank you. Dr. Ajala, if I can just start off with you. What is an elder, number one, in society? From what age is the elder that is considered to be elderly? And then what is elder abuse? What is the whole day set aside to create awareness for it?
In our environment, as in here in Nigeria, an elder is someone over the age of 60 years old. Not many people will be happy to hear that, but that is the set age currently. It's 60 and above. And I mean, that is set from country to country, depending on the degree of, what we call comorbidities that people have at that age. At the moment, our life expectancy, according to the WHO, is 55 years. So if, strictly speaking, maybe 55 would be an elder. Because if you can make it to that age, then you've actually exceeded what the world expects, from us. So in Nigeria, an elder is someone over the age of 60 years old. And when we talk about elder abuse, it's about, when someone is, any abuse is when someone is being mistreated. So it's basically the mistreatment of elderly people, which can be in many forms. So you can have physical abuse, you can have verbal abuse, financial abuse, you can have emotional abuse, sexual abuse. So yes, to answer both questions, an elderly person in Nigeria as of this minute is anyone over the age of 60. And abuse is a mistreatment of that person, which can take various forms.
Thank you, Dr. Ajala. So can you describe to us what are different kinds or different forms of abuse?
Right, so for the elderly, first of all, elder abuse is serious. It can be intentional and unintentional, because there's some people who do not actually appreciate that what they're doing for that elderly person is abuse. So just to give an example, something like neglect. Neglecting an elderly person so that they do not have enough food, water, shelter, etc., is abuse. But some people do not know that what they're doing for that person is abuse. Another form of elder abuse is physical abuse. Now that is the one that gets, that will be flagged up the most, if ever, because, any sort of abuse is a stigma. So if ever, but physical abuse does occur where, and I'm sure, you might have seen some of these videos that go around where they show someone being thrown around by a caregiver, or, being manhandled by some in-law, daughter-in-law or something. So, we've seen things like that. Being bitten, as in actually physically slapped, punched by people. So there's physical abuse. There's also financial abuse. And that can actually be very prevalent as well. And that tends to be, sometimes it's family members, sometimes other relatives, sometimes it's people, close people who are supposed to be caregivers. I've seen quite a lot of that as well in Nigeria. There's emotional abuse.
Can you describe, can you describe financial abuse? You mentioned it, but you didn't say what it is.
I didn't say what it is. Okay, so financial abuse is when somebody's money or property is being misused, or being more or less taken, stolen. So this tends to happen to people when they start to have memory problems with remembering things, and then the people around them are aware of it. The cases I have seen cases where people's properties have been taken, where people's jewelry, have been taken, where people, money, so all of that is financial abuse, so anything of value that's been taken, taken unlawfully. It might be that the person they're taking it from, the elderly person, is being coerced, as in being emotionally coerced to give up the money or the jewelry, or it's actually being stolen, or, sometimes just things being, them being misled. And yeah, so that's financial. Does that answer that question? Is that sufficient?
Yes, certainly. So if you can tell us about the other ones, you're going on to emotional.
Yeah, because those are sort of things that, yeah, people need to look out for things, especially when they notice that their parents are starting to lose their faculties, can't remember things, still, going out. I've had a case of someone actually selling the house to a neighbor. Nobody knew the neighbor, but he did sell it off to a neighbor. And somebody whose everything was taken, lots of people, jewelry gone, lots of people just, and when there's sometimes that people start going to the bank, they just see an elderly person going to the bank to withdraw lots of money. Nobody can account for it. Before the children know what's going on, it's all gone. And by the way, it could also be children, it could be other relatives, it could be caregivers, it could be anybody, it could be church members, people at the mosque, anybody, so that's financial abuse. Talked about neglect, and also emotional abuse. And you can have some elderly people who are just full of anxiety, they feel that they're being a burden to people, is what they're being told, oh, if you were not here, I'd be doing this and that, and all of that. Oh, so stressful for me, I've got my children to look after, and now, emotional abuse is one of people being, verbally just being told how, yeah, all kinds of physical abuse, financial abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal, neglect. So yes, those are the forms that come to mind at the moment. Sexual abuse as well. You can also have sexual abuse.
Really?
You can also have yes,
how
you can.
How common is that in our environment?
We don't know. We don't know, but we know it happens. We know it happens because sometimes people present to hospital with injuries you can't really explain. And they might not be able to tell you what went on, or might not want to tell you, because there's still a lot of stigma around things like abuse in any form in our environment. So yes, we get all of those forms of abuse.
Okay. That's actually quite terrible. So that's, we have all these issues in our own environment and people don't know about it. So what would you advise who is actually looking after their parents and their parents getting injury, and what kind of signs they should look for? The child thinks they're doing the best that they can, but things are happening that they should be aware of. So what are kind of signs that people should look out for?
So if, for instance, you've got a parent that you visit, you visit them maybe once a week or something, and you start to notice things. You start to notice bruising, you're being told things like, oh, she fell today, she fell yesterday, things that just don't add up. Black eyes, missing teeth, things like that. Then, that should raise suspicions, cuts and burns and all sorts of injuries. And we do see things like that you just can't explain what's going on. And, there seems to be lots of stories. The person just seems to have suddenly become accident prone. That would be one of those signs that one should look out for. Another sign that one should look out for is if you have a parent, for instance, that just starts suddenly telling you that they have to go to the bank. I'm going to the bank today, I'm going to the bank tomorrow. Some people haven't got any clue of what's going on with their parents' finances. Some do. And I've actually had some children that we've had to do what we call like a power of attorney letter to the bank. because they have parents who don't really have the capacity to do banking or financial transactions that people around them are taken advantage of. So when you start to see financial issues, transactions,
yes.
that just amount keeps going to the bank. Oh, I have, somebody else keeps needing help for something. That might be another one is if they suddenly become very fearful. So you go and see your parents and all of a sudden they're just afraid. They're afraid of all sorts of things. Maybe they just suddenly seem to be afraid of the person next to them who's been living with them for a while or something. They just suddenly become anxious. They don't want you to leave when you come to visit. They become more withdrawn and their behavior has changed. That's another red flag, something to look out for. And, when we talk about neglect, many people, like I say, it could be unintentional. They think that they're doing the best they can. But then you go and you find that your dad or mom is in the same clothes that you were in last week. And it's, not looking a little bit more destitute than normal, or you get there and you find them sitting in a pool of urine and they're being told stories about, oh, this just happened today. There are all sorts of red flags that need to be looked out for, or you go there and you want to see their medication and all of a sudden nobody seems to know what they're on, or they're a little bit more drowsy than normal, all sorts of things like that. Those sorts of changes should be red flags.
Yes. No, that's very important. Thank you very much. Ms. Ajomale, thank you very much for coming on the program. As a geriatric social worker, you are certainly unique. And I know you're an author of books and several articles. So you have a lot of experience in Nigeria on this subject. So can you tell us, from the social work perspective, how do you find elder abuse in the country? Mr. Ajomale?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please carry on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be on this program. I'm also very delighted that this program is coming up today in commemoration with the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, because it's very significant for us to know that this day, from what we are discussing, is to highlight the issues of elder abuse in our society, create awareness about it. And most unfortunately, the Nigerian society does not really know the extent to which our older persons, our elderly citizens, are delivered from every facet of the society, from the family, from the larger community, from the government, from institutions, from hospitals, institutions here and there. Abuse comes in various forms, to an extent that lack of adequate pensions being paid as at when due constitutes abuse. I want us to understand one thing. Abuse, based on my own definition, like we have agreed, anyone above 65 is highly susceptible to abuse, and they are very vulnerable. Because when you get to that stage of life, based on my experience, you become seemingly dependent. And dependence makes you quite vulnerable to abuse. And I always say that any action, deliberate or otherwise, that causes discomfort for, disrespect to, and degrades the dignity of an older person constitutes abuse. Because sometimes it might not be something physical. It could be emotional. It could be lack of adequate care, like Dr. Ajala rightly said, concerning not giving adequate attention and care to older persons. Thank God, what World Health Organization, through the International Network on Prevention of Elder Abuse, discovered that in many parts of the world, a lot of people do not know that their actions or inactions constitute abuse. Let's now come to Nigeria. It's quite unfortunate. We keep priding ourselves every day that we respect our older persons, our culture, our tradition, and all that. It is a myth.
Really?
Because Yes, it is. Yes, we can say we respect our older persons, we greet them, we do this, we do that. Do we actually give them the kind of care they deserve? Do we kind of give them the adequate attention they deserve from the individual families, from the extended family? Most unfortunately, because the extended family system over the years has been eroded. So a lot of people these days neglect their older persons. And because of the socioeconomic situation, many people who cannot adequately meet up with their own personal responsibilities shy away from taking care of their aged relatives. And the government is not there. The society doesn't see them as a special cohort that should be given adequate attention. So elder abuse comes in various forms. You go to, for example, you go to an hospital, government hospital, because it takes a longer period for an older person to get healed of one illness or the other. In some parts of this country, elderly people are prematurely discharged from government health institutions to create space for younger people. That's one. Secondly, a lot of people, because of our economy, belong to what I call the unorganized private sector or the public sector. For example, a fisherman from Bayelsa, who all his life was a fisherman, at the age of 70, he can't go to the streams to fish. Who cares for him? No one. A cocoa farmer from Ekiti, all his life, all he knows how to do is to farm and go to his cocoa farm. At a point, due to old age, he loses the ability to do all that. Who cares for him? No one. The children are there. They cannot even fend for themselves. A taxi driver or a bus driver in Ibadan, who for 40 years plies the roads from one point to the other. At a point, he can't drive anymore because of deterioration in his vision. Who cares for him? No one, because he never worked for government or he never worked for in the organized private sector. So there is no adequate social security for our older person. All this constitutes abuse. A lot of people see abuse as just, okay, they are physically assaulted. Like Dr. Ajala said, they are financially abused. People make unnecessary withdrawals from their accounts, particularly when they are unable to do it. For example, those who have dementia. You know, they can't handle their finances anymore. And then family, even children, grandchildren sell their properties without their consent. Many things happen that way. What about the emotional one? We neglect them. Recently, someone gave me an example of a very salient example of emotional neglect. You go, all of us in big cities like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, and Abuja. We leave grandma all alone in the home from sunrise to sunset. The children go to school. The parents, the son and the daughter-in-law, they go to work. She's all there with the house girl who doesn't speak her language. The house girl comes from Calabar. She is from Kwara. And they can't communicate. And at the end of the day, mama doesn't get the adequate care. I will say we care for our older persons. How? I wonder, because when I see cases, on that's on one side. Then on the side of the law, there are no adequate laws to address issues of elder abuse in Nigeria. I've had series of times through the NGO where I work, we go to policemen to report cases of abuse that have been reported to us, and what do we get is, now your mama, if you beat your mama, is it your business? Because there are no rules or there are no laws to adequately, address these issues. Wow. Go to legal aid council and they say, how do we prosecute such a person who thinks his mother is a witch because she has dementia and locks her in the boys' quarters and gives her, they will just open the door, push a bowl of rice to her in the morning and a bowl of eba to her in the evening. And you go to the law enforcement agencies and they tell you they don't have adequate laws. But to the glory of God, there's a coalition called CADROP, Coalition for the Societies for the Rights and Privileges of Older Persons in Nigeria, pushing for an elder rights act. The bill is with the National Assembly and it's had dilly-dally there for so long. And I wonder, many members of the National Assembly maybe in their 40s and their 50s, they are going to get to 60 and get to 70. But how many people are preparing for that state of life? No adequate laws to make sure that these people get redress. Every day they just go there, even if it is most times unreported.
You know,
they go through it and don't bother to tell anybody. Even one members of the family who abuse them cover everything up. When people want to take it up, that tell it's not your business. So it's a big problem. It's a national menace that we have to continue to educate people about it, because people erroneously believe that we take adequate care of our older persons. That is not true. There are many areas that we inadequately take care of them. And I keep saying it, that whatever we do now for them, the younger ones will get to that stage and we will partake in it. If we neglect them, we'll get neglected later in life.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is really powerful. And I think it's these kinds of discussions that we need to have. Our listeners are actually people, some of them in their 40s, some in their 50s. And I think it's very important that as we hear this and we take care of our elder ones, we also need to put in place things for people who are getting older themselves. We have to look into this area. Now, unfortunately, time is fast spent. We have next to no time at all. So if I can just give you, Dr. Ajala, an opportunity to say your last word and also to tell us about what it is you're doing around the world for the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And then just give us a few last words for our listeners. Then I'll end up with you, Mr. Dr. Ajala.
Right. So I took some notes down when Mr. Ajomale was talking, and he mentioned some powerful things. Becoming dependent makes you vulnerable and susceptible to abuse. So for your listeners who are in their 40s and 50s, they need to be aware of what they need to be doing now so that they do not become dependent when they are older. You know, he mentioned so many things. That's what we can do. Let's talk about that, because, you know, we have a conference coming up called the Healthier Aging Conference, where we're giving tools on how they can age, they do not become dependent in old age. That's number one, because at this point, what Mr. Ajomale has said, in old age, we go as we're moving on, is going to be really bad for us because we don't have the legislation to protect us. We don't have the legislation in place now to protect us in the future. So what we need to do, the only power we have at this point, is to get ourselves educated on on those things that we ourselves can do now, so that when we get to that age, when we get to the age of being elderly, we are not dependent on people. That makes you so vulnerable and susceptible to abuse. So we've got the Healthier Aging Conference coming up on the 18th of June in less than a week's time. And, you know, I'll just encourage everyone to register
and what I will
be part of that conference.
Yes, and I think also we'll let you know that you can also, if you register, you can also join them by Zoom. The information will be available on the DoctorsOnAir social media handles, Instagram, etc. So you can join the conference. Mr. Ajomale, can I have your last words for our listeners, please?
Thank you very much. I'm happy that such programs are coming up, because we need to create strong awareness in the society. A lot of people have that wrong notion about abuse of older persons. One. Secondly, we need to hammer so well onto government to create legal frameworks for elderly people to get redress when they are abused. And this will serve as deterrent to others who do, because there's so much ignorance. You know, everyone should be involved. The individual, the family, the society, the government, the institutions, and every one of us should be involved, because every day, the population of the older person is growing by the day. With advancements in medical sciences, people are living longer. Even with, like Dr. said, at 50, 40 something, 50 something, those who will live long, enjoying old age, that's the question. Because a lot of things happen to them even when they live long. Those who live to 70, 80s, are they really well treated? And most of them, because they are dependent, they just have to keep quiet. And so then on the issue, I keep saying, on the issue of social security, older persons are supposed to be given a specific amount of money, 65 and above, the government can afford it. Let these people be adequately compensated. They contributed to where the society is today. And so we cannot just leave them. Because many of them were not part of the public service. They were not part of the organized private sector. So why do you have to
We have to look into that. So thank you.
There should be social security for older persons.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is we're very passionate about this. Thank you, Dr. Ajala. Thank you, Mr. Ajomale. But I think leaving us with those last words, there must be legislation to protect them. There needs to be social security to upkeep them. These are things that we take away. Thank you so much, both of you, for the very enlightening session.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for new video updates.